6 speakers. Let's see. Thanks for sticking to the time and also to being on even earlier so that we have more time to discuss with the 6 of you. So you see in the program, the panel discussion is about AI, the journey, the destination, or the vehicle. And we like to bring this together in this context of serious games. So I made some notes while you talked, and actually I want to address some different parts on it to different speakers. But I want to encourage the audience. If you have any questions, we have microphones here. There's Francesca and Anna, they help you. So they have microphones. If you have a question now, feel free to raise that question before we go into this. Okay? But I try to focus also on you in between to see if you're raising your hand. So we want to have this as a free discussion also for you. So just feel free to ask any questions. Actually, when we had the preparation of this, we talked a lot about how can AI help humans, can enable humans, and can be a great assistant. We talked a lot about assistance. Janette, you were the only one talking about artificial intelligence in the industry. And basically you said we should be the father. We should be Darth Vader, the father of AI. It is a question for all of you, and maybe Ed starts. Do you think we can be the father or mother of AI, teaching robotics, teaching artificial intelligence in general, to become a better self of us, the next generation of us?
The father of AI. I don't know. When I think about AI, I think I would rather AI be the Force and make us all Jedis. I don't think AI should be the point that is dictating what's going on, or that we should manage it that way. AI should really flow through us, connect us. Sorry, I'm geeking out a little bit here. And make us better at what we do. So I think it would be nice if AI stepped back a little bit out of our focus of attention, and we really shifted towards what people are trying to accomplish. It's beautiful and interesting, and there's much work to be done. But in many ways, especially in industry, some of the really interesting AI scenarios happen in the background. They provide safety, they provide empowerment, but they're not really the focus of the conversation. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, at the moment, definitely. But I think we were running a typical hype cycle with AI, of course, why not? And so it's pretty usual that at the very beginning we're trying to figure out what is AI actually about and what potential does it have. And then normally, as soon as you pass the cycle to some extent, I see that pattern that then you start speaking about the use cases, what can be achieved realistically. And that shift in focus is, from my perspective, really crucial. The faster we get there, the better.
Roberta, your name already applies. Roberta. There is a Fraunhofer project called Roberta. That's how they teach kids how to code.
Really?
Yeah, it's a small robot, and they call her Roberta. Actually, that was intent to get girls into the subjects in science, math, and all that around it. And that's why they call the robot Roberta.
That's amazing. I'm going to review myself now. I'm a robot. Yeah, I think the analogy with fathers and mothers and kind of parents in the AI, it's very much needed for us to treat AI as a little child that actually doesn't know much and doesn't have values yet and doesn't have a sense of what to do in the world. And of course, I'm hugely humanizing AI as a super broad term. But I agree with that. There's something about the power to be used to augment us that is much more, that will go beyond us teaching the algorithms how to behave.
And Janette had this on one of the slides. We want to have this rather a fusion than a competition. I already think of the cyborgs that I saw, or what the picture you had with Star Trek, which is we already have.
Forge.
Yes, thank you. I'm more of a Star Wars fan than a Star Trek fan. That's why I don't know all the names. I'm sorry.
Excused.
So say it again. What's his name? LaForge.
Geordie
right?
LaForge.
Geordie LaForge. So he has a VR or AR glasses on, a head-mounted display that he can see, and he can even he has enhanced vision, right?
Spectrometer, and yeah, he is a better human with that, especially with better eyes.
So this is he's a better human.
Actually, that's the idea, or that what comes with it, that enabled by technology, it's not just like compensating a weakness, but actually adding capabilities we do not have at the moment. So in his case, it's a little spectrometer. But coming back to the point Ed made, like what might be meant by AI flowing through us, that we, first of all, we take the advantages of AI, where AI is actually better or coming with better capabilities than human have at the moment, and combine that will enable and unlock a potential from my perspective. So to make it a bit more concrete and not so philosophical, humans are not the best to systematically scan large amounts of data, and even if we would, it's not big fun, right? That is something pretty concrete. So, and where I'm very happy to delegate jobs like that. That might be a good start with.
Talking about delegating jobs, Christian, you explained yesterday to me how you label the data, and actually that's people labeling pictures, hundred thousands of pictures, right? Could you at some point delegate this to a robot, or the machine learns itself, right?
The whole point of the data labeling is actually that the machines can't do it, so then we can teach the machines. So you could say now, maybe for some of these tasks, the last jobs of the humans will be to label these images, and then we don't need that anymore.
Isn't that a boring job?
Yeah,
that brings us to serious games, doesn't it? Like, you are the experts, but isn't that one of the purposes why I have to tell Google what is a street sign or not to label data?
Yeah.
Are we at the end the people who just, like, the humans label data, and so machines can do what for us?
I think right now we really see that humans are necessary for creating and for labeling the data. But also I wouldn't, you know, the kind of tasks we currently solve with that are also fairly simple, right? So, I mean, having an AI that is able of recognizing a cat or a dog in an image, this is not, you know, the kind of AI that many of us might have envisioned, right? So.
Well, okay, then let me get this in another direction. How much do we want computers to see? How much do we really, like, wouldn't there be a conflict? How much we really want computer to see? Because I just learned that the front camera of one of the smartphones is always on, so that it can understand when you're looking at it, saying, yeah, that is meant to be that the light is not going down when you want to look at your phone. But actually, hang on, there is a device that always has a camera on and sees me, sees if I'm looking at it. Do I really want this? Anybody?
Well, I think the larger point you're making is being very intentional about what jobs we ask AI to do and what jobs we want to keep for ourselves.
Yeah.
So an easy example of that, we worked with a group of people who have to check high tension power lines. They're vital to keeping things lit. I like lights and my Wi-Fi to work at home, so that's a good thing. But to check them, you essentially take people and put them in trucks, and they drive up into the mountains, and they go through the mountains and check all the lines. It's a profoundly difficult, hazardous job to try to find little tiny anomalies. So we built a simulated world just like a game, put a drone in it, and taught the AI to fly along and check all the power lines. That's a perfect job to delegate out to an intelligent system, because what you're delegating is risk and intensive work and highly unproductive activities. What you're keeping are the high skill jobs for humans and none of the risk and none of the real challenges. So being, the point that you're raising, which is let's be really thoughtful about what jobs we keep, what jobs we give away, I think is a good one, and probably one you see in the factory quite a bit. but that's, I think, the orientation we have to keep.
Well, that goes also to a philosophical question, like what makes humans humans? What can we do that robots can't do? What can we do that AI can't do? Roberta?
There is an example, an old kind of example about planes, right? So, for instance, you have the pilots who nowadays have the highly skilled jobs, and they are the ones who are in command. They are the ones who earn the top salaries. And you have the flight attendants who are actually the ones with lower salaries and the ones who are doing the kind of more normal jobs that we do on the day-to-day. As AI evolves and the machines become more intelligent, this is going to be flipped, right? So the value on empathy, the value on someone understanding individuals inside the plane as you're traveling and kind of dealing with the unexpected problems that passengers would have, will have a much higher value and a much higher need to have a human being to deal with that. While the others that are seen quite, aspirational right now will be perfectly done and already usually being done by machines. So I think this whole discussion of jobs is just going to be a very different set of skills that are going to be valuable. And of course, a lot of the population will have to retrain, which is a massive problem.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, and I think creativity will also be a thing where humans will always be a little bit better than machines, at least right now. Because if you look at the approaches that we are using to apply creativity to machines, like the example you had with creating new images, for example. We're using generative adversarial networks to kind of adapt to a specific scene, but is this real creativity? I know that's really philosophical a little bit, but I don't think that it is actually real creativity. It's just applying technology to a process to create new stuff, but not being creative, in my opinion.
Okay, let me disagree just for the fun of it here. I disagree.
Can you hold the microphone a bit
let me
closer?
disagree just for the fun of it here. I think machines can be autonomously creative. It's just that the way we frame creativity is our sort of boundaries of creativity and the dimensions we use to actually define creativity. I think when we allow machines to be creative on their own, we need to allow machines to evaluate them as well, right? I'm just throwing something philosophical here. Because, I do believe that AI has reached a point where it's not a slave anymore, but is a collaborator. It sort of extends our creative bounds, and we should use it in that way. But at the same time, I think it can be an inspiration because it operates in a different fashion. It searches in different ways, so it produces outcomes that are different that can inspire us. And we don't always have to actually compare our capabilities with AI capabilities. At some point, for certain tasks, we should just allow machines to do things on their own and judge that. Whether that is all right or not, it's up to us to judge or up to machines. But it needs to be within constraints and within our, bounds that they're safe, right? Just to clear myself.
What does it mean, safe?
Things like artistic expression, for instance, all right? Like allowing machines to create a piece of art or a piece of music.
Well, actually, a lot of people claim that to be a human thing and not a thing that artificial intelligence is doing. Creativity, creating a symphony.
Yeah, because we are very selfish. We, as humans, because we think that creativity is such a human-centric feature, emotion as well. We cannot really buy the fact that machines are better at recognizing emotion faster than humans in some especially with face-based recognition. It's because it's something our own. This emotion, this is our stuff. We need to be, think about it a bit more, reframe it a bit more. I think that's my take.
There is a company, a startup in London called DACH. And
say it again?
DACH. Instead of Box, it's DACH. And basically, it's AI for music. So it creates soundtracks, dozens of soundtracks, all generated by artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And there's a massive discussion right now because composers are saying, well, but wait a minute, there is a value of composing. And actually there is an IP discussion as well because you cannot use sounds to recreate new music, but actually the AI is learning from sounds that are existing. So there is the AI infringing an IP there to create something that is not done by humans. So there's a whole knock-on effect on that.
Yeah. And for example, for example, we actually did the same with Alex the Kid. We created a song with IBM Watson to see if it's possible to have creativity in this kind of space like music. And the artificial intelligence was used as a tool to create the music. So it was not used as a full-blown, strong AI that was creating a symphony or something like that. It was used to inspire the actual musicians. And I think that's a very important point, to accept AI as a tool for humans, and we need to look out that AI is not kind of going on by themselves a little bit. Yeah.
But I think that's a great point. When I talk to, I've got some friends who are artists, writers, and what they found AI was good for was the blank page. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to write something new when you're staring at that blank page. If you can get a running start, have some ideas, ultimately you'll put your particular take on it, but it's just a tool to get started. It's a tool to help you do the art that you want to do. I think that's an excellent point.
I think also that in the field of art, we have also just started to work with AI. So a good friend of mine in Berlin, Doran, he's actually working with artists, and they were creating what they called a virtual muse. So basically to inspire artists. And it's actually fascinating what kind of art then is the outcome of that. And this is about paintings basically. So, but considering that we started talking more about AI maybe 5 years back, and now over the last 2 or 3 years, we already saw lots of AI working on creative tasks, where maybe before we would have always said that would never be possible. I think it's very clear that we've soon, enter a stage where it's quite normal that AI will produce music and art, and that it will actually look great probably, and will sound great.
So we would come back to a collaboration with them. So we can be creative, and they help us to be creative.
That of course too. Yeah. So I mean, the project there is a bit more complex. I don't want to go too much into detail, but there are also other people working exactly on that, right? So they want to enhance humans to enable them to become a better artist. So basically, you can paint some sketches, and then it helps you, directs you a little bit, so that what you actually paint there looks better than you could ever do it. So for example, I could never be an artist, I think, right? So, but with an AI that helps me a bit with that, probably I could also produce some nice art.
And perhaps just also trying to contribute from an automation perspective, or what the actual term machine comes from my perspective. When thinking about reframing creativity, from my perspective, creativity is meant in the sense that you need a huge background of experience you had in your life, and what we as human beings refer to as creativity is this is something highly specific for each and every human being, and connecting that with the points you made on common sense, that this is one of the major and hardest points of AI, to get that common sense and to get trained and provided with the experience they need to create something new. Like creativity in the narrow sense of having an own inspiration and putting that into practice is some of, like, it's the major challenge, so to say, from my perspective, beyond singularity of AI to do so. While on the other hand, of course, as long as we stay in the field of inspiration, respectively, it's a tool, checkmarked, because with that I can tell the AI what job I want to do, being creative, and then the AI can support me with that. And that brings me back to the point that a machine by intent, from the philosophical point of view, is a system intended to support human beings. And as soon as we leave that spot and try to come up with something new that has its own meaning on earth, that that is an open question. What would be the purpose then, right? And as long as we refer to it as a machine from this respect, then it should support human beings.
Sorry, Roberta.
Yeah, isn't it? I'm just kind of giving another perspective. Isn't it the point that we get to a level of society that we free ourselves from doing some manual tasks, and we actually more in the thinking rather than in the doing. Even if you were a painter, right? So what if you could paint without your hands? Just by thinking of what you want to paint, and then the machine is doing that for you, right? Because it allows you to connect in a deeper level, and it has the right skills of painting to do that. I don't know, I think there's going to be a lot of new professions that are going to be created, and it's going to make us, well, either we're going to destroy ourselves, right? That's the pessimist side, but the optimist side of me says actually we will recreate our purpose in life.
Christian, before I go further.
I think also sometimes we see AI really, we always have this human level thinking about AI. So we think what is difficult for us must also be difficult for an AI. This is not necessarily the case usually. So, and creativity, I mean, we always, we all love and admire artists and musicians. And we always think this is, you have to be human in order to do that. Maybe that's not true. But maybe there are other things where we really need to be human to do that, where we see, okay, everyone can do that. For example, I mean, we all know how it is to be a human, right? Because we are human. And an AI will probably never really understand that. So human interaction, social interaction, is, I think, something which will be always done by humans. For example, when you want to calm a crying child or so, this will be difficult for an AI to do because it doesn't really have an understanding how it's like to be human, right? So, yeah.
But that goes back to what you said. We have to teach AI to get a common sense, to act in a good way to this baby who's crying, right? How far away are we from that, from getting it to a common sense?
This one is very difficult to answer, actually, and no one really knows. There are many people working on this right now. There are many different approaches that people are using for that. It could turn out that neural networks are not the best way of doing that. Maybe we need something else. So when you have a look at the research community, we now see we have almost reached a glass ceiling. So basically there is progress still in neural networks, but it's not as fast as it used to be a couple of years back. And we haven't yet solved common sense ultimately. I think what I showed today is a good step in the right direction, but it's difficult to tell if you can solve it within the next years. No one really knows. That's the honest answer I can give, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here probably.
Yes, please, Roberta, you want to say something?
Just adding to what you're saying is like common sense is not very common, and it's very culturally relevant as well. So what is going to be common for an AI here in Germany or in the US or in China or in Australia, there's going to be, or in Brazil, it's going to be very different because it's a totally different society. Culturally, we look at our problems in different ways. So that scares me a little bit.
Talking about scary. When we had the preparation of this, the whole day, Susan, the curator, she was talking about this one other event where she was, and there was a lady who inspired her and saying, time is the new luxury, wealth is the new, or health is the new wealth, and creativity is the new power. We already talked about creativity. And that, to me, sounds like, hang on, are we giving away our power to machines? Not quite sure about that. But you talked about that saying, oh, no, it doesn't have to be that way. But for me, it's like, okay, when she's saying creativity is new power and AI has the power, where am I left as a human being? Is that too difficult to answer?
I don't think so. I think all of us here agree that AI is there to enhance the boundaries of our creativity. Sometimes it might go beyond our own sort of perceptions of creativity or generate crap, but still it is there as an inspiration, as a collaborator. It would be nice as an artist to be able to actually have a proactive collaborator, like a person. an artificial persona that actually not only inspires you, not only sort of generates things for you, but sort of like proactively comes up with suggestions. Been showing some examples. So I think we should just see AI as an extension, as a new opportunity instead of being fearful about AI. It's a new opportunity for us being more creative. We can actually focus on the things that we do better. Boring tasks can be left out. Maybe you don't, when you design a game, maybe you don't want to focus on detailing a tree or a forest. Maybe you want to come up with a new story about this game. So you let the machine create the forest in a click of a button. So you save time of boring tasks for more creative tasks. And I think this is where things are heading, at least within the creative industries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you draw this very nicely back to the serious games part of AI.
I think that's a good point. I mean, you're thinking about how you shift your time. It also says that really the point of AI is to remove the friction out of a lot of these things. If you want to be an artist, you don't have to go build a frame, stretch the canvas, paint with brushes, get everything ready. You can open a computer and start creating in the moment. And so in many ways, you're making it easier for more people to be more creative. And there may be some people who have challenges to creativity in terms of motor skills, sight, hearing, whatever, and you can adapt to those and you can help them be creative too. So one of the highest order benefits is pulling all of that friction out and trying to make, I think, creativity more accessible and easier for a much larger group of people, which should create much more and better art, right?
Yeah, in a sense, democratizing the creativity, right? This is what we do with AI. Yes, I think that's the. In a sense, democratizing creativity. I mean, like creativity is accessible to everyone. You're not an artist; you can be an artist. We can help you.
Which you showed really nicely in your presentation when you showed the sound that was created by AI, and you use that in your game. You don't have to have a big team to create. Exactly what you have in your mind, what your imagination said, I want this game to look like that, and I don't need to wait for 5 other people. I can use AI to enhance that and to get faster to my solution, which goes then to what I said, time is luxury.
Yeah, because I might want to use my time to educate my students, which is a highly creative task, and I'm really waiting for the moment that professors will get paid better because AI is going to be hard to replace, right? So when we're dealing with human interaction and where emotion and social interaction comes into the game, this is where I think these are jobs that will benefit from AI because AI can deal with other things. I think I feel safe for quite a few years at least. It's a very difficult task, right?
So there's an unannounced project that we're working inside Bossa right now, which is AI for storytelling. So it's an AI narrative kind of system that we're building, and I think we've once this sort of layer has taken over, we actually gonna become storytellers. So, and I see right now when, these thousands of gamers who used to just play games, they're now creating the islands inside Worlds Adrift. They're actually now creating the ships inside Worlds Adrift. They are creating together. They are actually, what they're doing inherently is telling stories about themselves. And that's how they're expressing themselves. And I think that is something that human beings will continue to do really well, much better than AI.
I said health would be the new wealth. And I really like this one example you had, Georgios, on the therapy for veterans. And maybe to everybody, where can you see AI helping us to have, to raise this, to become more healthy people?
So we have a special section for that, actually, and I think it also applies to all of us, because you talked also about, for example, recognizing cancer in images. So right now, it's very difficult for even real experts to recognize specific types or maybe very tiny types of cancer, maybe in X-ray images or somewhere else. And that's, I think, one of the best use cases for AI, where it can support not only in image recognition, also maybe in reading all the papers that are there for oncology. That's what we are doing, but also there are other cases in other industries and also in other healthcare sections where AI is used to actually search for specific treatments, for example, and then recommend them to a doctor or to a physician. And that, I think that's also one very important point again, that the AI is not deciding what kind of treatment the patient is getting. It's more like kind of recommending to a person that is then deciding. So still the human is kind of the man or the woman to decide.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, when you ask where's the opportunity for AI in healthcare, I think it's all along the entire chain.
Yeah.
Finding the right treatments, analyzing larger data sets, multi-party computation, greater privacy, enabling doctors. Like I said, what we see in the literature is that doctor plus AI is better than either AI or just doctor. And if you think about it, obviously preventable medical deaths are very difficult to measure, and the numbers for those deaths are highly variable. If you take some of those numbers just for the United States over the course of a year, it's roughly equivalent if half of Hanover was gone tomorrow. That's a shocking thing that we're not talking about. So looking for those opportunities anywhere along the chain. If you're really good at building visualizations, you could build better training. If you're really good at writing scripts, you could build better education or better empowerment. If you're really good, you can almost look for opportunities anywhere on the chain, and we could all benefit from it. So healthcare is a massive opportunity, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too, absolutely. I think also probably in, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 years, we will look back at this time and wonder how we actually managed to go to a doctor, and then there was a single person who just based on his own experience mostly and based on the symptoms that you observed, tried to come up with a diagnosis. Whereas this is obviously a very good case when you have a statistical approach that just goes over all the health records you have from all the people all over the world. You would probably come up with a much better diagnosis than just relying on one single person doing that. So, and as you said, I also think in the end it will be the combination of an AI that supports a doctor, and this is usually the best approach. And you can already see it. I think a lot of people are using Google sort of as a replacement. So no one should do that actually, but you can also see medical doctors doing that actually. So it's not uncommon to do that because we currently lack the right tools for doing that. So and this will change obviously.
In the field of serious games, where do you see that? Like medical fields, as Georgios had the example with the therapy for veterans. Where in the serious games field could you also see AI helping us to become a healthier person? It was mentally, I'd say Charlie is a possibility. What else could be out there?
Obviously you have the physical rehabilitation front. There's several sort of game-based solutions for various types of physical issues, chronic pain, and so on. And of course, as a general assistant in any sort of human to human or sort of many humans computer interaction, let's put it this way, where you have maybe a group therapy session or you have a caregiver with a number of patients, or you have a health center where no one is out there actually, and you're like in stress, in panic attack, and you're calling, and no human is out there. There is technology that actually supports speech-based emotion recognition nowadays. So it's like anything that has emotion. Emotion is an underlying fundamental sort of a layer of human communication, and I think we do very well. AI can really help us in that regard. And within health, emotion is really critical.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Janette, you said that we use technology to fix technology. That I think is a really interesting part of AI. That really, like, we see problems out there that we can solve, that AI hopefully can solve for people. But the most problems are actually coming from technology. Is that in your daily life, the sort of, okay, we have to find an innovation here because this is driving me nuts? It's the pain in the ass factor.
Exactly, commissioning machines, right? Yeah. Yeah, but that's a typical engineer's job, right? They are always constantly improving technical systems. And of course, you can also contribute with AI and that. As mentioned before, like from my perspective, AI is not a new type of actor. I'm always in my mind, there's either a decisive factor and proactive actor to me that can only be human beings, because from a philosophical perspective, I do not see any purpose to have a new species beside us based on technology. While where I definitely need technological innovation is on the one side tools, meaning things who support me, who inspire me, or systems that I can delegate tasks to. And of course, at the moment, coming from the last few industrial revolutions, there are some machines and they have many things that are actually by far not perfect. And this is a place where, of course, AI is a way to improve them, or to at least delegate jobs I still have to do, but that are actually boring or frustrating to me.
I want to open this to the audience and ask for questions from the audience. I'm happy you're sticking around with us. Are there any questions you want to raise? All the six are still here. Can I have a microphone here at the front, please? Oh, yeah, one there, and then that's your second.
Thank you very much for all the insights. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to all of you in the same platform. I have a comment perhaps to make, how far we are away from AI as a creative force, and that is, what do you have to say about the movie, I have to look it up again, the movie Zone Out with Thomas Middleditch, that was made by an AI called Benjamin within 48 hours. And apparently it included a moustache being affixed to the leading lady's face by the AI for whatever reason. And the actor Middleditch having sex with salsa, which is a sauce, as we know. So
I was like, are you talking about the dance?
No. Apparently, this was part of the script. So, if that is where we are with AI in the creative field, do we really want to go further down this area, down this road?
Actually, I think there's something about storytelling, right? I think the biggest flaw in those cases and these experimentations is that we feed data into an algorithm for them to create a story that makes sense and creates emotional hooks, right? Having said that, I've seen recently two poems, one that was written by an AI and another one that was written by a human being. And there was a poll, and 70% of people who responded that actually thought the poem that was written by the AI was the human one, which was very scary. So I mean, I think there are certain fields and certain areas that are limited. So a poem is like, just a few words that actually AI is doing a pretty good job. And others like storytelling and a whole plot of a film that creates, ups and downs, emotional hooks, and all the storytelling that, techniques that we know work, that we're very far from.
Yeah, so indeed, storytelling is one of the hardest creative tasks for humans and machines, of course. So I think, so it depends on the domain. I've showed Yavalath, I've showed Ludi, a system that actually, a software that creates software, in the sense that it builds new games that we haven't seen before and winning awards. So within game design, we have really great examples of AIs making good games. poetry as well. We have a whole research community that runs for the last 20 years called computational creativity that actually sort of studies the underlying mechanisms of machines, of the capacity of machines being creative autonomously or co-creative in a creative dialogue with humans. So I think depending on the domain, I think we have seen some really interesting outcomes. And nowadays, for instance, you have painters that they exhibit with computational artists together, or they exhibit their own creations or their co-creations, that's things that they have co-created with machines. So it becomes more and more common that we actually collaborate with machines, or even allow them to be artistically expressive on their own, and just display what they do, or even display their creative process, which is different to ours, right?
Just a comment, also for the clarification. So, if you think about AI that creates something, please don't think about it like a human would do the same task. So humans sit down in a corner thinking about it, what line should I write next in a poem. This is not how AI works, right? It's basic statistics, you feed it a bunch of text, and then it outputs an infinite amount of poem text, if so. Well, this was a bit exaggerated, but this is in general how it works, right? And this is also how we should see it, I guess. So it can produce something new that we maybe haven't seen before, but after all, it's applied statistics, and it's not anything. It's not thinking. It's not bringing us closer to the singularity. This thing might never exist, actually. So it's I think important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I also think. Oh, sorry.
No. If there's any further comments,
I just want to say, I think also that we need to take care about the explainability of AI in this case. So when we are applying AI to create creativity, actually, or create new images, for example, then normally we understand, or we can try to understand what the neural network in the background is actually doing. But sometimes this is not even possible, and it's not because the AI is too clever, it's just because we don't have the right visualization for us to really grasp what the network is doing right now. And I think this is also very important to understand, that AI is not kind of magic or something like that. It's just math, actually.
It's just math.
So when we're talking about AI in communication and especially storytelling, how do you determine what level or what amount of details about the user you need to have the most appropriate solution in the end? Speaking of culture, for example, you mostly need a very cultural insight into the user, because he could, just plainly speaking, someone is Italian, he's saying hello by kissing your hand. Well, doing that thing in Germany won't be that most suitable one. So it's a whole different reaction to that small introduction. And how do you determine how many of those layers you want to take into consideration? Ouch.
Yeah, I actually think that's what we meant with the bias that we create when we create an artificial intelligence. We always train with specific data. It means the data or the model created is actually kind of biased. It is based on the data that we used. So if we trained it for an Italian model, then it might be different than a German model, for example. And the second point then is context. So when we are training a model with a specific bias, we need to make sure that we are using it in the right context. And I think this is something that we are now doing kind of manual still, but there are already approaches to kind of generalize this thing to understand, okay, now I'm in this kind of context, and that's why I need to use this model which has actually bias, but it is actually fitting in this moment. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Roberta?
Maybe more directed to Bossa and their current project of AI storytelling. I saw a talk from Chad Felicek regarding that. You have a multinational user base, so you are almost forced to take something like that into consideration, especially if you want to have an evolving environment. I think immersion is a big factor you want to create. So how do you cope with that?
Yeah, it's a very, very important challenge. It's a very good question. Without going too much into the details of the project, because we haven't announced fully yet, apart from what you saw from chat talking about it, it's I think the most important thing is the input, right? So human beings, when we're creating games, the games creators and the teams are the input of this creativity, right? These are the agents who are creating the games. And I think it's very important for us to have a diverse company. So saying before that we are 30 nationalities within 90 people. So, and that is very deliberate. So we work constantly on diversity of gender, of color, of nationality, so that whatever we create, we are already creating something that goes global, even though we're based in London, right? So, I think that's going to be like another multitude of challenge once we go deeper into the narrative AI agent that we're creating, that it needs not to be biased.
Thanks.
There is a question.
I would like to continue with you, but put it from another perspective. I'm working in a cultural center here in Hanover, and we were so lucky to see that there are cheap solutions already that, for us to develop our own game, but they're very standardized. Of course, if they want to be cheap, they want to sell to many people. It's like one that fits all, and it's very hard for us to get our individual design in it, our individual footprint in our gaming solution that we had in our cultural center. That is something what we want to offer to our visitors, a unique game in our center, but we have to use a tool that is very, very standardized, that comes from Berlin. So I cannot wait for your work to be faster, to get all the results on what you're working, because that's something users like us who have not such a great budget, what we are waiting for. Very easy and also cheaper solutions to create our own games in the cultural field. If we're talking serious games, that's also a really important aspect, I believe, to see that there are smaller institutions who are working in the social field, in the cultural field, who want to use games just like a program to type text or something, because it will be a very important cultural method in the future. So that was just an amendment to my speaker before. And thank you for the talk, and please be much more faster with your work. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, we're going right back to work right after this. So.
Yeah. Group picture, and then you can go back to work. There was another question.
Hello. As a statistician, I have to say thank you, because it's very rare that you have such a good discussion and deep discussion on this topic of AI. I want to contribute something. For me, the main thing to say to the AI is garbage in, garbage out. So it's all about the data and the rule set you have as a base to train your AI and to give the right rules to your AI. And I think at the moment it's not such a big thing to discuss, because there is just a limited number of people who are training AI, who have the money, the time and the skill set to do that. But once you open up AI or you let it train by itself, I think there is a danger we have to think about. And I think it's very important to generate a rule set where there are like main things set up, like an AI can always just support people and help and do something good, because otherwise there is a danger if it gets out of our hands. But I can't wait to look forward to the time, like you said before, that the AI opens up to more people, to people who don't have the skill set now, who don't have the money. So I think it can be very, very good thing for the future.
Thanks for the comment.
I think that's a very good comment, and it's I think that's the reason why OpenAI initiatives like that exist, to try to create some sort of sense and regulation and values about that. But also I think companies like ours, they need people like you to say, hey guys, pay attention to this, right? Because sometimes we're just so focused on getting the job done and achieve whatever the business goal is, that we need different perspectives and challenging ourselves all the time. And you mentioned that before, right? So yeah, that's a very, very good point.
Yeah, I think we've touched on this a few times, but it's crucial. So I'm glad you're raising it. I think all along the chain, we need more inclusive data sets, so we're actually representing a much broader set of people. We need more people at the table, so we're asking the right questions. We need better mechanisms to measure success. If you can get a machine to say something to you, is it actually meaningful and relevant? And can you measure your response in a meaningful and relevant way? We touched on context earlier. I think that's going to be crucial. It's easy to imagine the scenarios in your day-to-day life. If I'm driving home and I need a reminder to stop by the pharmacy to get my rash medication, if I'm by myself, great. If I'm in my carpool, I'm never going to hear the end of it. Learning what's contextually appropriate. But you also touched on something really crucial, which is, while we have some very powerful mechanisms, what we're really investing deeply in now is transparency into those mechanisms. Because it can look like you use the right data, it can look like you asked the right question, but there are inherent biases that you won't see. So I think the transparency of AI is going to be a huge point of growth over the next few years.
I think the transparency was actually really good seen at Christian's presentation, when you open the black box and basically see, why did the AI think that this is a cat on the picture? And there was the statistics, right, to 56% that was a cat, or whatever the detail was. So I saw that also already in health case studies, where they really say, okay, how big of a, what is the statistics behind that? Is that to 80% dementia or something else? And it's really cool to see, okay, what did the AI see in this picture? Where did it look at? And we have to open this box, and I'm really happy that you brought this to the table, that we really can see, okay, people are focusing on that, not just that the AI does some decisions for us. No, we can actually look, why was the decision there, and how can we train it better to make a more reliable decision?
Just a comment about that. You're almost right about the interpretation about the results. What you could see at the end is basically the result, the outcome. Mm-hmm. What usually people mean when they want to, open the black box, is that they have an understanding of why the decision was made. Yeah. And this is usually hidden in the statistics somehow in the model. And in particular with deep neural networks, it's quite complicated because the amount of parameters is very, very high. So we usually have some problems in visualizing that. It's a bit difficult to grasp. But there are a lot of people now also working on these tasks, right? You could also think about, why not? I mean, there's also quite funny, right? So when you ask a human why he made a decision in a particular way, afterwards he would usually rationalize the decision, right? So when there was a car accident and afterwards you ask the driver, why did you do that? Why did you drive over the red lighting? He would say, yeah, blah. He would come up with some explanation. There are now also people working on actually training AI that could give an explanation as why it has decided this way for neural networks.
I just referred to this one presentation I saw at the Ministry for Economics. There's the Technical University of Berlin. They show how they opened that and saying, okay, to 80% the ball in this baseball picture was at this specific part. And then you see the specific part and they basically show you where the AI looked at on the picture. And so this is really opening the box. Oh, it looked at this. It looked on the head of the player, and that's why I thought that might be the ball, because that's a round thing. So this is really cool to see that they already work on that.
Yeah, there's even a subtlety to it, that sometimes the AI looks at something as a proxy for something that's not there. So you say, I'd like to build a model to identify the best possible employees and then hire people like them. But I'll make sure that my model can't look at gender because that would be inappropriate. You run the model, and what you find if you take it apart is, oh, it looked like your best employees played football and none of them played softball. Well, softball's a women's sport. Football's predominantly a male sport. And so you've just created a proxy for a huge gender bias in your model. That has to be unacceptable. So coming up with complementary techniques to break open your model and understand not just what it looks at, but what it proxies for things that aren't there is the path to get away from that implicit bias. And that's incredibly important.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to your comment. I know from my Fraunhofer background that there is the AI for Good conference. They work at the ITUT in Geneva. They just had the second part of this, or the second year of AI for Good. And they are now working in working groups on, hey, how do we make AI a good thing for people and how to focus on that. And there's even the World Economic Forum working with them and the World Health Organization. And they all work together in the standardization body to make AI something that is good for human beings. So that's something I really look forward to see more of that. But I think there was another question there.
Yeah, well, my initial question has kind of been answered already, which was, do you think initiatives like OpenAI can be beneficial? And you guys already said, yeah, it can help with transparency. Now my question has become like, do you think making AI technology open source more available to the community, do you think that's also the way to go forward? Or do you think there should be another solution to create that kind of transparency or other
Did you understand
innovation?
the question? Did you hear it proper?
I think I understood the question. It was,
I didn't.
Do you think that making AI open source is a mechanism to move the state of AI forward? Is that fair?
Yeah, do you think that's like the best way forward? Or do you think there's another solution to go forward in a different way?
I think there's multiple solutions. We actually publish a fair amount of our work into GitHub and academically. So
which you bought.
What's that?
Which you just bought.
We were doing that before we bought them, but yes. All in the family. But we do think that there's a tremendous world of really talented people on the stage in this audience. You should be participating in this. That's how it gets better, to the earlier question. In parallel to that, though, we also founded the Partnership for AI, which is great. Let's put the tools out there, but let's also have an agreement about what's a good use of AI. And then that way we can decide, well, even if you wanted to do this, we're not going to have you do it on our platform because we just don't think it's ethical. It won't be available to you. That's an extremely rare case, but we think we should have ethical bounds on what we build and what people do with the things that we build.
Mm-hmm.
Just a comment about that. So I'm not sure how Microsoft is handling that, but for example, Google is also open sourcing a lot of the algorithms and the code, but they will never release a complete data set. So basically, and this in a world where the AI usually means data combined with the algorithm, it also means that the AI will always stay with the big companies. They will release parts of the data set, and I'm not sure what the politics of Microsoft is about that. But then on the other hand, this is just the world how it is, right? Companies like Facebook and Google, they are extremely valuable because of the very unique data that they harvest. So, and I wouldn't expect them to release any of the data anytime soon. So,
Matthias?
I actually wanted to say a similar thing. I think the data is the main point here. So I think most of the companies are actually publishing their papers and that's going into Nature and all the other magazines, for example. But the data is actually the key. Without data, you cannot train any model. You cannot train your artificial intelligence. And that's why I think data is way more important, at least in this case right now, to actually build something. And that's why companies like, for example, Microsoft and also IBM and also others are not publishing all of the data because it's a differentiator for them actually. And I think maybe it could be a good thing to actually publish more of that data so that AI is going to be democratized more and that more people can actually use AI and AI technology. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do we have more questions? Oh, yep, there's one. That would be the last one.
Hello. I had a question. We work for a microfinance company. We have a service desk where we get a lot of questions by phone, by chat. And I was wondering if we want to use AI to get the best answer to our customers. How difficult is it going to be to learn the AI? Like, what are the top frequently asked questions? What are the best answers? Maybe giving data input from chat, maybe in the beginning, or later on, maybe let them listen to the phone conversations that we have with clients. And just wondering where we're standing right now.
It actually depends on what are you using. So, for example, if you're beginning from scratch, it can be a quite difficult task to train such a model, and you need huge amounts of data to do that. But that's why, many companies are offering services, cognitive services or AI services, to actually accelerate this process. That means you don't need to have thousands of data sets or entries to train your model. You actually maybe only need 10 examples of how a question could be asked, and then the model will train on this base and also on other bases, based on this cognitive service, for example, to create a model for that. So I think it is actually pretty easy to train your own AI if you're using commercial services. Yeah.
My idea was that we are doing a small pilot with that, where we train the model, but still we have to think for the questions. But since we use a chat program and have been using this for the last year, we have a big database maybe with answers, and seeing if customers ask more questions, did they get the right answer. So what if we have a huge set of data implemented into the database and let the computer learn what are the questions that you ask in different steps on the website, or maybe in a program, or maybe even in Speak, without telling them, because I don't know the best questions. It's our customer service center that knows all these questions and have many years of experience in that.
I think there will always be kind of an interaction between the human and the machine learning model in this case. You can use unsupervised machine learning to create your own clusters and maybe find the right answer, or even create answers with natural language generation. But I think there should be always a human behind that kind of ticks and says, yeah, that's right, that was a good answer to train the system. I think otherwise we're getting it kind of out of hand, and we cannot really ensure the quality of the results.
I think that's a good point. There's some interesting case studies on the kinds of thing you're talking about. Obviously, your implementation is going to be specific, but I think it's the quality of the data that's available and the person delivering it, to your point. The other thing, the third piece that tends to come up is you start to identify who are the experts that are best at delivering that data. And when you go back and talk to them, you find there's more than just the data corpus behind them. They have ways that they interact with the customer. They have unique methods of delivery. So I would look strongly at your data. I would look at how that's clustered together. But then I'd also ask, who are the people who are the best at resolving these issues? That's usually a really interesting thing to do once you get that sort of graph visualization.
Isn't the customer the person telling you whether the answer was good or not?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, I think we've all had the experience that some customer service representatives are way better at delivering the right answer than others, even if the text is the same.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. As the moderator, I have the power to ask the last question. It's pretty fun. I would draw this back to a more human-centered question, and would like to have an answer on how do you think we have to equip our kids for the future where we collaborate with artificial intelligence? Do you have an answer to that, or do we have to talk about that next year?
Well, my kids of their own volition are training intensively with Xbox, just to build up that rapport. I think you focus on higher level skills. Obviously, we're all big fans of math and science, but judgment, leadership, ethics, If they have powerful tools that help them make decisions, let's help them make the right decisions. Let's help them make decisions that bring everyone else along.
That's a really nice answer.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's a great answer. How can I follow that? I don't have kids, so it's like no responsibility.
Your nephew.
My nephew. Oh my God. I think the key thing is to, well, they all should be trained as to understand deep technology. I think that's absolutely crucial. So the education system needs to, be revisited for millions of reasons, but that one is one of them. We have to be having our kids to understand deep technology much earlier, and aligned to that, I would agree with that. Is like there's a set of values and a set of directions of life that philosophy becomes way more important. Philosophy, psychology mixed with mathematics and AI knowledge, I think that's going to be one needs to be part of the curriculum as early as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the humanities need to be, they have been ignored for quite a few years nowadays. Like the recent, and unfortunately, underfunded because of this sort of deep learning madness. I think we need to revisit the humanities, philosophy, back to the basics, and actually ask them, where should we dig our hole? We know we have great tools to dig holes, but we don't really know where to dig. We just keep digging. And I think humanities, it's a safety net here that we need to use. So skills such as creativity, philosophy, programming, including having AI interwoven within it, I think it's, just go to Finland, for instance. I think, Finland is doing a great job in educating the next generation of children.
Yeah, thanks.
I think I don't really have a very good answer to this, but from my impression also, seeing how over the last 10 years, since we all started using smartphones, where we are already using a lot of AI, right? So no one of us remembers anymore how to go by car from Hamburg to Berlin or so, because we use our smartphones for that. So all these things happen more or less seamlessly. So it just, happened. We got more and more used to AI being part of our lives. And this is, I think, really what will continue. It won't be that, I believe, it won't be that, harsh change where from one day to another there will be AI or something like that, and now we have to adjust to that. So I think it will just be the normal process. So we will still have kids and we will raise them probably accordingly, but obviously, of course, the kind of subjects we need to teach will change, of course, right? So the kind of jobs will change, obviously, but yeah.
Taking up the point Roberta made, or also you, I guess one major thing is to get your hands dirty. Like what we have to achieve is that we are not just using new technologies, because I'm always kind of scared. Yeah, so it's nice to have that seamless technological revolution, but you should be aware of the physical basis, the philosophy, the concepts behind. And then on the other hand, you should make your hands dirty to also have a feeling how it feels to actually create that and have the conceptual responsibility to do so, because that's the major precondition to have a responsible part in the discussion. And so that would be my major point.
Thank you. Matthias, last but not least.
Yeah, and I think that I totally agree that the technological understanding of AI and what's happening behind is very important, and we should train children exactly on that topic. And I think another very important point is critical thinking, that you really ask yourself and ask the system, why are you now recommending this decision? And I think we should really teach our kids to understand, okay, I shouldn't just take that as granted and just make that decision. I should really ask myself and ask the system, how did you get there? And so critical thinking is key, I think.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all your insights. Thank you for your time being here. We have only two things to do, only two duties. One is for you. There are feedback postcards on your seats. Susan, can you show that one so that people can see that? Please fill it out so that we can make the Serious Games Conference 2019 even better. And the other thing you have to do is please give a round of applause to our panelists, speakers. Thank you so much. And you have to be part of our group photo. So that's the only thing you still have to do before you go back to work and make it faster with all the AI. Thank you so much for the inspiring day. Thank you.